Managing Director, was the last General Assembly for President Obama addressing the General Assembly, and he gave a big long speech about the state of the world from his viewpoint. He said it was genuinely going in the right direction, but on one issue he said there needed to be a course correction, global inequality. How do you achieve that course correction?
I think there are two ways to address it, from my perspective and the IMF perspective. First of all, if you make sure that inequality between men and women, discrimination against women around the world in many, many economies, and more so than we sort of anticipate, if that is fixed and the gender gap is closed rapidly, you already reduce inequality massively. So that's one avenue. Second avenue is, as trade prospers, and will continue hopefully to prosper, as innovations come through and improve productivity, we also need to pay attention to those that are not necessarily well equipped, to those who are losing their job because there's a shift of supply chain and changes in the industrial sector, but also in the service sector. And we need to pay attention to that. There has to be fiscal spending focused on that as well, so that we don't have the backlash that would be so detrimental for growth and prosperity, particularly in those countries that are either low-income, developing or emerging market economies.
Let's focus for a moment on what is the most troubled area of the world, and that's the Middle East. Given the security situation in the Middle East, do you see any economic hope?
You know, it's a region of the world which suffers from two distinct issues. First of all, the low price of commodities, starting with oil, and there are many oil producing and exporting countries in that part of the world. And second, the major geopolitical and sometimes terrible wars that are plaguing some of those countries. And it has massive economic ramifications. So in that part of the world, we try to be as engaged and active as we can. In the war zones and in the high conflict areas, we cannot really engage because it simply doesn't work. But in many other countries we are helping, and we have programs in place with many countries. I can think of Tunisia, of Jordan, of I hope soon Egypt and Morocco. So we are actively engaged and will continue to be so.
You mentioned some of the countries where perhaps things are looking more positive, but look at some of the other figures. Syria's gross domestic product less than half of what it was before the war. Yemen lost 20 to 35% of its GDP in 2015, and Libya's GDP fell 24% in 2014. To what extent is the cost of these wars, particularly the human cost, going to be a long-term problem for the region?
Well, if we look at one country in particular, Syria, for instance, which is probably the most difficult case because of the complexity of the conflicts there, we're looking at a country where it will take at least 10 years to rebuild GDP to the level where it was. We're looking at a country which currently has 52% dropouts of school in primary education. So there is a massive reconstruction work that will have to begin hopefully soon, when conflicts can be addressed positively and resolved. While there is conflict, there's not much that can actually be done at the moment, and that's really a very sad place and situation.
You mentioned earlier your negotiations on Egypt. You're coming up with a package of $12 billion loan for Egypt. Should Egyptians pin hopes on this to try and change their economic future? Is it going to solve everything?
I think with the measures that the Egyptian authorities and the Egyptian populations are considering in order to improve the economy are the right ones. And we will certainly support those. We are almost there. I think it will take a few more weeks to actually be able to present the whole program before the board of the IMF in order to financially engage. But I think it's a very positive sign. It will hopefully act as a catalyst to bring, more investors, more public financing into that country, which is, rich with talent, with resources, with energy, with youth. And hopefully that will take them further into the development that they want to have.
But Egyptians appear to be losing hope. There was, in the last few days, a boat that capsized leaving Egypt. Dozens were killed, and most of the people on board on this occasion were Egyptians.
You know, that's the very reason why we need to be as engaged and active as we can in helping those countries develop their economy. Because if there is economic hope, if there is a prospect for jobs, if there is a prospect for income, then people will not be so keen to leave. And it's really money well invested, and I hope that other financial circuits, other donors, other investors will understand that and will participate in that process. We are certainly trying to take the lead on that.
In terms of global economic trends, there is an important event coming up soon, which is the US presidential election. When you listen to the rhetoric of the campaign, are you worried that this could mean globally more protectionism?
We are generally worried about the potential rise of protectionist measures that we are seeing. And we are worried about the rhetoric here and there and from many corners and many angles. Because we have seen trade over the course of time bring up countries in low income, middle income and emerging market economy circles. And globalization, if you include, you know, trade, integration, technology, innovations, all that together can be a force for good, only under the condition that those who are not equipped, who are not educated, who are not able to adjust are helped in the process. And for that there has to be public and private efforts in order to help them along.
One of your focuses, and I know it's one of your focuses here at the General Assembly, is gender equality. You've gone on record as saying women need skin as thick as an old crocodile to get on.
Look at me.
You're constantly meeting the world's political, financial, business leaders, and I bet you most of those meetings are with men. How do you change that?
First of all, I celebrate the woman in them, because I think there is that dimension as well. And second, in addition to reminding all of them that it is a moral imperative, I also remind them, and we have now documents, analysis, numbers, it is an economic no-brainer. It boosts growth, it helps with diversification of the economy, it reduces inequality, and that applies at the global level, at the domestic level, and in the public as well as the private sector. So efforts have to be undertaken, deliberate efforts to include women. It does not reduce the pie, it does not eliminate boys, men, it improves the position.
Christine Lagarde, thank you for talking to Al Jazeera. Thank you. Excellent.